What is the best way to prepare for further education, or more generally speaking, the future? Um, what prepares children from an early age for their future classes, courses, or employment? Is it the rigorous repetition of mathematic equations, the constant consideration of the meaning of written words, or the relentless recitation of specific formulas? What is something that can train children in all areas of mental function simultaneously while still teaching them specific skills? It's music. Music is a universal teacher. When children receive musical education from an early age, it's been shown in studies uh, to improve mental function and the ability to memorize and recall information, as well as to solve problems and analyze information presented to them. Now, I hope today to provide some insight into this, that children should have a musically focused facet to their education early on. Now, when speaking of the future potential of a child, we always speak of mental development. The cognitive development of children is a top priority and must be a top priority for parents and educators. Analytical, logical, and creative abilities are universally required in nearly all educative subjects, as well as in most jobs or careers after school has been finished. Now, in multiple studies, musical training has been shown to facilitate a higher level of mental development in linguistic, comprehensive, creative, mental processing, memory, and study habits in young children. All of these skills are needed throughout one's life. In a 2016 study titled Relating Language and Music Skills in Young Children, published in Frontiers in Psychology, it was found that this study provides further evidence for interrelationships and differences between language and music skills in young children. In contrast to previous studies, which typically used only tasks and focused on very specific skills, they investigated potential correspondences between domains rather comprehensively by including tasks tapping into different levels of processing. In layman's terms, the study sought to prove a correlation between linguistic instruction and musical instruction, and how the development of children in each areas was related because of the instruction method. Now, when music was taught with a similar tenacity and a similar focus as language, children were actually shown to have heightened linguistic comprehension. Now, that's important. Language is, in psychology, an indicator of mental development. Cognitive ability, the ability to understand the spoken word, to comprehend what is being said, and to recognize sounds, intonations, etc., is all very important in the development of a young child. And the study showed that music actually facilitates that. And with music being the catalyst in the development of children's minds, as shown in the study, they should have access to that. They should be, schools should focus more on musical training. Another study that tested adult musicians and non-musicians, it was shown that behaviorally musicians outperformed non-musicians on standardized subtests of visual, phonological, and executive memory. ERPs were recorded in standard auditory and visual oddball paradigms, which means participants responded to infrequent deviant stimuli embedded in lists of standard stimuli. Electrophysiologically, musicians demonstrated faster updating of working memory in both the auditory and visual domains, and musicians allocated more neural resources to auditory stimuli, showed increased sensitivity to auditory standards deviant difference, and less effortful updating of auditory working memory. Essentially, the findings show that people with comprehensive musical training consistently outperform those who have not received comparable training in areas of cognitive memory function. Recall and encoding are essentially being able to remember and being able to memorize. And in both areas, adults who had been the recipients of musical training were shown to outperform those who had not received such training. Now, if such training is begun at an early age, one can imagine how this effect is amplified, which only goes farther to prove that children should be given musical training. It only serves, it will only serve them well in their future. Now, a quantifiable measurement of mental ability is an IQ test. Typically, when a low IQ test score is assigned, the individual is assumed to have a lower intelligence coefficient, vice versa with higher IQ scores. And a study conducted by Schellenberg in 2004 found that when children were given consistent musical training over the course of a year, they showed an increase of 2 to 3 points in IQ. It doesn't seem like a lot, and Schellenberg himself said that such a discrepancy wouldn't really have an effect on the mental ability of the child, but imagine the effect of 10 years of training. If the development is to be held constant, that's an increase of 20 to 30 points over the course of 10 years. It's a much larger difference. Now, with the increase in IQ, the children who receive musical instruction are also able to handle failure better, improvise solutions to problems more rapidly, or more confident in their learning abilities. All of these things translate into success in education and success in job performance. Another study conducted by Anvari in 2002 studied the relationship between early reading skills and musical skill among a large sample of English-speaking 4- and 5-year-olds. The most interesting finding, perhaps, was that for 5-year-olds, the performance on musical pitch predicted a variance in reading abilities. Those who performed higher on tests in musical pitch, discerning the difference between tones and notes, were able to perform higher in reading assessments. There's a distinct correlation shown there between music education and early mental development. Now, as the studies show, musical education leads to improved mental development. And when preparing children for future education as well as future employment, they should have access to such training early on, and their continued training should be encouraged by both parents and educators. Music is known to awaken the brain, sharpen the mental abilities of all ages, but has been shown to be especially impactful when introduced at an early age. And we all want a better future for the generations of tomorrow, and that future begins when they're young. And we'll be able to prepare them better through emphasized musical training. They should have that opportunity, and we must provide that for them.